Dorothy Adam was the school nurse. She was also supposedly a dentist. She had to run down to Mexico to get some training in dental work, and she was horrific.
As the drill was coming, you could almost see the rivets. It was moving so slowly. There was no Novocaine, and whenever she drilled, and she would almost always go into the gums and would scream, "You're such a baby for crying. Why are you crying?"
One of my friends, she used to have to tie him down, tie his arms down in the dental chair and strap his head back, or have an African hold his head, and she would drill away without Novocaine. It's not that Novocaine was not available. She did not use it. There was something sadistic about Dorothy Adam.
I remember at noontime, we had to lie in the middle of Africa. It's pretty hot in the afternoon. Noontime, we'd have to take a nap. And there were 2 beds in each room, 2 little cots with a little curtain over the front that acted as a door. And I recall very clearly one of the house parents, one of the men, walking up and down the halls quietly with this big black belt. And he would quickly move the curtain aside and walk into the room. And if you weren't asleep, he'd hit you with this thing.
I remember being caught as a first grader whispering to my brother John. I was caught by Grace Wright, who proceeded to come in, and she would carry her husband's belt, and she would beat us with the buckle end of her husband's belt. I was beaten by her from the buttocks down to the ankle, basically. She would just start wailing on you. She'd tell you to roll over, and she'd just start wailing on you. So noon rest was not a time of noon rest. You'd hear these beatings going on, kids screaming bloody murder, asking for mercy.
I'd heard the screams coming from down the hall, and he came in to the shower. And I remember clearly seeing the blood running down his legs, just pouring into the shower where we were together. And I looked at his ass, and it was just bloody from being whipped. And this guy's a friend of mine, and I knew he had done nothing wrong. And it could be me next.
I remember Howie as being one of the kids who was really beat up on. As soon as I heard his name, I went, ooh. And I remembered him being pounded on, both by older kids and bullies as well as by the staff.
He was the one who gave voice to all the agony that we were all feeling. And so he was made fun of. He was the kid that people picked on. And the way that I dealt with him, always verbalizing his agony, whether it was at school or whatever, whenever, was to shun him, push him away. He was the weakling, and I didn't come to his defense.
The kids saw the house parents physically beating the children, and they figured, well, it's okay if I'm older than that kid to do it to him. So the two things sort of fed off of each other, I think.
Just don't terrorize me, don't beat me. If I could just get through and have nobody pay any attention to me, that was as good as I could hope for. And then it would go down from there.
You know, there was no place to run, there was no place to hide. The adults were not there, the adults were not safe, the dorm parents were not safe to go to.
Many of the people who eventually became house parents were people that didn't fit the qualifications for doing missionary work. They were not good at language learning. They did not relate well to the Africans in some instances. And so, well, let's put them down to take care of the children.
Some of them being placed in this boarding school against their wishes. They would rather have been evangelizing in Mali or in Ivory Coast or in Senegal or somewhere, and instead they got assigned by the Christian Missionary Alliance to be dorm parents.
And if you're not trained to understand where a child is in stages of development, and you have your own issues that have never been resolved, which many of these people clearly had, then they take it out on these children. So this is what went on a grand scale.
Dorothy Adam was invited into our family and spent time with us and developed a relationship with my parents and with me. I was her special little girl long before I went to the school. The kinds of abuses that I remember from her were around my breasts and then some vaginal manipulation. But the mark that I carried with me the longest and that was the hardest to work through was shame, because she used to give us cookies. And even though I had no vocabulary, I didn't know the term whore or prostitute, from a very young age, I thought I had sold myself for those cookies.
It was over a course of 2 years that there was continuous sexual assaults that happened in my bedroom at night after the power plant was off. I would feel his presence come in, pitch dark, and then I would experience being raped. So there's not a whole lot that I can say beyond that. Very violent.
It was a perfect setup for a pedophile. Not only did we have these huge gaping chasms of unmet emotional needs, but they were there to reach out and to fill them, and in our neediness, we opened ourselves up to them.
Somehow, these adults created this climate in which none of us told our parents what we were experiencing.